Jake was 17 when everything he loved disappeared in a single afternoon. Not metaphorically. Literally disappeared. The black RGB keyboard he saved 6 months for. The dual monitor setup glowing blue against his bedroom wall. The custom white PC with tempered glass panels. The headset hanging beside the desk. Even the stupid little LED lights taped around the ceiling. Gone. Jake stood frozen in the doorway of his room, backpack slipping off his shoulder. At first, he thought he got robbed. His heart started pounding. "Mom," he yelled. No answer. He dropped his bag and rushed inside. Empty desk. Dust outlines where the monitors used to sit. Loose wires dangling from the wall like dead vines. His stomach twisted. No. He opened the closet. Nothing. Under the bed. Nothing. Then he noticed a folded yellow sticky note on the desk. "Maybe now you'll focus on your future instead of games. Love you. Mom." Jake stared at the note for 10 straight seconds. His hands started shaking. No way. He sprinted downstairs. His mother, Linda, sat at the kitchen counter drinking coffee like it was a completely normal Tuesday. Jake slammed the note on the table. "Where's my stuff?" Linda didn't even look nervous. "I sold it." The words hit harder than a punch. "You what?" "You heard me." Jake laughed. Not because it was funny. Because his brain literally refused to process what he just heard. "You sold my setup?" "Yes." "My setup?" "You're addicted, Jake. That's not your stuff to sell." Linda sighed dramatically. "I'm your mother. Everything in this house is my responsibility." Jake felt rage building inside his chest. That PC cost over $3,000. And now it's gone. You had no right. Linda rolled her eyes. "Don't raise your voice at me." Jake stared at her in disbelief. This setup wasn't some random toy. He built it himself. Piece by piece. Birthday money. Christmas money. Editing commissions online. Summer jobs. Fixing neighbors' laptops. 3 years of saving. Gone. "How much did you sell it for?" he asked quietly. Linda took another sip of coffee. $800. Jake nearly stopped breathing. $800? It was old. It had a 4090. "I don't know what that means." Jake grabbed the edge of the counter so hard his knuckles turned white. "You got scammed." "I don't care." That sentence broke something inside him. Not the money. Not the PC. The fact she genuinely didn't care. "You ruined everything," he whispered. Linda crossed her arms. "Maybe now you'll stop wasting your life." Jake stared at her. "You think gaming ruined my life?" "Yes." "You know those games paid for half that setup?" "Oh please. I literally made money editing videos. 4 pennies. Jake felt tears building but refused to let them fall. "You sold my future." Linda laughed. "Your future isn't playing games online." Jake looked at her differently for the first time in his life. Not as his mom. But as someone who genuinely didn't understand him at all. And maybe never would. That night, Jake sat on his mattress staring at the empty desk. Silence. No fan noise. No keyboard clicks. No Discord calls. Nothing. It felt like someone ripped part of his identity away. Then his phone buzzed. Ethan. His best friend. "Bro, you hopping on tonight?" Jake stared at the message. Then typed. "Can't." A few seconds later. "Why?" Jake sent a photo of the empty desk. Typing bubble appeared instantly. Then. "What the hell?" Jake called him. The moment Ethan picked up, he exploded. Dude, she sold everything? Yep. Bro, that's insane. She sold it for 800. Silence. Then Ethan screamed. 800? I know. Your GPU alone cost more than that. Jake rubbed his face. I feel sick. What are you gonna do? Jake looked at the dark room. I don't know. And that was the scariest part. For the first time in years, he genuinely didn't know. The next few weeks were hell. School felt unbearable. Jake used gaming as an escape before. Now all he had was silence. He couldn't edit videos anymore. Couldn't stream. Couldn't talk with online friends at night. Every day felt empty. But Linda acted like she'd saved his life. You're spending more time with family now, she said one evening. Jake almost laughed. He barely spoke to her anymore. At dinner, conversations became cold and short. How was school? Fine. What did you do today? Nothing. Linda hated the distance growing between them, but she refused to admit why it was happening. Instead, she doubled down. You should thank me eventually. Jake looked up slowly. Thank you? Yes. You were wasting your potential. Jake pushed his plate away. You know what's crazy? What? You think you taught me responsibility. Linda frowned. But all you taught me is that I can't trust my own mother. The table went silent. Linda's expression hardened. I did what was best for you. No. You did what you wanted. Jake stood up and walked away. Linda shouted after him. One day you'll understand. But Jake already knew something she didn't. He would never forget this. Ever. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. Jake got an email. From an old client. A small YouTuber he used to edit gaming videos for. Subject line. Need an editor ASAP, paying well. Jake stared at the screen in the school library. His heart raced. He replied instantly. I don't currently have a setup anymore. The response came 2 minutes later. I can help you get one if you're serious. Jake blinked. What? The YouTuber's name was Marcus. Not huge. Around 300K subscribers. But Jake used to make thumbnails and edits for him during weekends. Marcus called him that same night. You still got talent? Marcus asked. Jake smiled weakly. I guess. Good. Because my editor quit. Jake hesitated. My mom sold my PC. Marcus paused. She what? Jake explained everything. Silence. Then Marcus said. That's actually insane. Yeah. You know what's funny though? What? You were one of the best editors I hired. Jake sat up straighter. Really? Your retention edits boosted my channel like crazy. Jake hadn't heard praise like that in months. It felt weird. Marcus continued. I'll make you a deal. Jake listened carefully. I'll send you an old editing PC I don't use anymore. Jake's eyes widened. What? You work for me full-time after school. We split profits on sponsorship edits. Jake couldn't believe it. You serious? Yep. Jake looked toward his bedroom door. His mom was downstairs watching TV. Completely unaware that the thing she called useless gaming might become his way out. 3 days later, a massive box arrived at the house. Linda looked confused. What's this? Jake grabbed it before she could touch it. My stuff. Linda narrowed her eyes. What did you buy? I didn't. Jake carried it upstairs. Locked the door. Opened the box. Inside was a used but powerful PC setup. Not amazing, but enough. Way more than enough. For the first time in months, Jake smiled. That night, the room came alive again. Monitor glow. Keyboard clicks. Discord notifications. It felt like breathing after drowning. Jake immediately started editing for Marcus. Hours flew by. Cuts. Captions. Sound effects. Transitions. He remembered everything instantly. Like muscle memory. At 3 a.m., Marcus messaged him. "This edit is fire." Jake stared at the words. Something inside him woke up again. Purpose. Over the next 6 months, Jake became obsessed. Not with gaming. With success. He edited every single day. Learned advanced motion graphics. Learned audience retention psychology. Learned storytelling. Marcus's channel exploded from 300K subscribers to almost 2 million. Sponsors started paying crazy money. And Jake started getting a percentage. At first it was small. $200. Then $500. Then $1,200. One night, Jake opened his banking app and froze. Balance. $18,432. He stared silently. 6 months ago he had nothing. Now he had more money than his mother. And she had absolutely no idea. Linda finally noticed changes. Jake stopped asking her for money. Stopped talking much. Started buying his own clothes. Paying for his own food sometimes. One evening she asked, "Where are you getting money from?" Jake didn't look up from his laptop. "Work." "What work?" "Editing." Linda scoffed. "Internet videos?" Jake nodded. "That's not a real career." Jake smiled slightly. "Okay." That response irritated her more than arguing ever did. A week later, Linda entered his room while he was at school. And what she saw changed everything. 2 monitors. Professional microphone. Drawing tablet. Stream Deck. New keyboard. A far better setup than before. She stood there stunned. Jake came home an hour later and froze. His bedroom door was open. Linda sat in his chair. Waiting. "You bought all this?" Jake dropped his backpack slowly. "Yep." "With what money?" "My money." Linda looked around the room. "This is ridiculous." Jake laughed quietly. "You said gaming was useless." "It is. This useless work made me more money this month than your office job." The moment the words left his mouth, everything changed. Linda stood up instantly. "Excuse me?" Jake didn't back down. "You heard me. You're being disrespectful." "No. I'm being honest." Linda's face turned red. "You think sitting on a computer makes you successful?" Jake opened his banking app. Then turned the phone toward her. Her expression changed immediately. $42,000. Silence. Complete silence. Linda looked genuinely shocked. "How?" "Editing. That can't be real." "It is." Linda sat back down slowly. For the first time, she looked uncertain. And Jake realized something important. His mother never hated gaming. She hated not understanding it. And now, she was realizing she might have destroyed the best thing he ever had. Linda stared at the phone screen like it was fake. $42,000. Jake watched her expression carefully. Confusion. Shock. Disbelief. Then something else. Fear. "You made this from editing videos?" she asked quietly. Jake took his phone back. Yeah. Linda looked around the room again. The monitors. The microphone. The expensive peripherals. For the first time, she wasn't seeing toys. She was seeing a business. And she hated it. Not because Jake failed. Because he succeeded without her. You're still a kid, Linda finally said. Jake leaned against the desk. I'm 18 next month. That doesn't mean you know how the real world works. Jake almost laughed. The real world? Yes. You mean working a job you hate for people who don't care about you? Linda crossed her arms. At least it's stable. Jake looked directly at her. Nothing is stable anymore. That sentence hit harder than he intended. Linda opened her mouth. Then closed it. Because deep down, she knew he was right. The next few weeks became tense. Very tense. Linda suddenly started acting different. She stopped insulting gaming openly. Stopped making sarcastic comments. But Jake noticed something else. She kept trying to control him. What time are you sleeping? Why are you always online? You spend too much time in that chair. It wasn't concern. It was discomfort. Because Jake no longer depended on her. And parents who love control hate losing it. One Friday evening, Jake was editing a massive sponsorship video when Linda knocked on his door. We need to talk. Jake paused the timeline. What? Linda stepped inside awkwardly. I've been thinking. Jake waited silently. I may have overreacted. Jake blinked. This was the closest thing to an apology she'd ever given. But it still wasn't one. You think? Linda sighed. I just didn't want you throwing your future away. Jake turned toward her. You sold something I worked years for. I know. No. I don't think you do. Linda looked down. Jake continued. You didn't just sell a computer. His voice lowered. You sold the one thing that made me happy. That sentence sat heavily in the room. Linda looked genuinely hurt. But Jake wasn't trying to hurt her. He was finally telling the truth. That night, Linda couldn't sleep. She sat alone in the kitchen replaying everything in her head. The screaming. The empty room. The note she left behind. At the time, she truly believed she was helping him. But now? She wasn't so sure anymore. She remembered something Jake said months ago. All you taught me is that I can't trust my own mother. At the time she dismissed it as teenage drama. Now it echoed in her mind like a warning. Because lately, Jake barely looked at her anymore. The next morning, Linda drove to work in silence. Rain tapped against the windshield. Her mind wandered. When did things become this bad? Jake used to tell her everything when he was younger. Now their conversations felt like two strangers forced into the same house. At lunch break, one of her co-workers noticed she looked distracted. You okay? Linda sighed. My son hates me. The co-worker laughed lightly. That's normal for teenagers. No, this feels different. What happened? Linda hesitated. Then admitted it. I sold his gaming setup a while back. The co-worker nearly choked on her coffee. You what? Linda frowned. He was addicted. How expensive was it? Maybe $3,000? The co-worker stared at her. You sold a teenager's $3,000 setup without asking? Linda immediately got defensive. I'm his mother. That's not the point. Linda crossed her arms. He plays games all day. And now he makes money from it? Linda looked away. The co-worker shook her head slowly. My nephew does online editing too. Makes more than I do. Linda suddenly felt embarrassed. Not angry. Embarrassed. Because for months she'd treated Jake like he was wasting his life, while secretly he'd been building skills the world actually paid for. Meanwhile, upstairs in his room, Jake's own life was changing rapidly. Marcus's channel exploded past 5 million subscribers. Sponsors were insane now. Gaming companies, tech brands, energy drinks. Jake edited videos non-stop. And he loved every second of it. Not because of money. Because for the first time ever, he felt valuable. People respected his work, his creativity, his ideas. Things his mother never understood. One evening Marcus called him unexpectedly. "Yo." Jake removed one headphone. "What's up? You busy?" "Always." Marcus laughed. "I got something crazy to ask." Jake spun slowly in his chair. "What? You ever thought about moving out?" Jake froze. "What?" "I'm serious." Jake's heart started racing. Marcus continued. "I'm opening a content house in Texas. Editors, streamers, thumbnail artists. Full team." Jake stayed silent. "You'd get your own office set up." "That sounds expensive." "It is." Jake swallowed hard. "Why me?" Marcus answered instantly. "Because you're talented." No hesitation. No doubt. Just certainty. And hearing that after months of being called lazy by his own mother, hit differently. That night Jake couldn't sleep. Move out? Actually leave? The idea terrified him, but excited him too. He imagined freedom. No arguments. No judgment. No walking on eggshells. Just work. Creativity. Peace. But another thought kept bothering him. His mom. Despite everything, part of him still loved her. And that made everything harder. The following Sunday, Linda knocked on his door again. This time softer. "Can we talk?" Jake removed his headset slowly. "Sure." Linda sat on the edge of the bed awkwardly, like a guest. "I've been thinking a lot lately." Jake waited. "I don't understand your world." That surprised him. "I tried to force you into mine because it felt safer." Jake looked at her carefully. Linda continued quietly. "When I grew up, gaming meant wasting time." Jake didn't interrupt. "But things changed, and I didn't." Silence filled the room. Then Linda finally said the words Jake waited months to hear. "I'm sorry." Jake's chest tightened. Not because the anger disappeared. Because a part of him stopped expecting this moment entirely. Linda looked down at her hands. "I should have talked to you instead of controlling you." Jake stared silently. "I thought I was protecting you." "You humiliated me," Jake said softly. Linda nodded slowly. "I know." Jake looked away toward the glowing monitors. "You sold something I loved like it meant nothing." Linda's eyes watered slightly. "That was wrong." The room fell silent again. Then Jake asked quietly, "Why didn't you trust me?" Linda answered honestly. "Because I was scared." That answer changed everything. Not instantly. Not magically. But enough. Enough for Jake to finally see her as human again. Not just the villain in his story. A scared parent. One who made a terrible mistake. A month later, Jake made his decision. Texas. He was going. Not forever. But he needed space. Needed independence. Needed to discover who he was outside that house. Telling Linda was harder than expected. "You're moving?" Jake nodded. "For work." "You're serious?" "Yes." Linda looked heartbroken. But she didn't argue. And somehow, that hurt more. When? She asked quietly. Next month. Linda nodded slowly. Okay. No yelling. No manipulation. Just sadness. The final week before Jake left felt strange. The house became calmer. Sometimes Linda asked about editing. Sometimes Jake explained things. Very small conversations. But real ones. One evening, Linda stood outside his room watching him work. The screen flashed rapidly with transitions, subtitles, effects. You're really good at this, she admitted. Jake smiled slightly. Thanks. Linda looked emotional. You know, when you were little, you used to make videos on my phone. Jake laughed. Oh God. Those were terrible. You loved creating things even back then. Jake paused. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was never just gaming. Maybe it was storytelling all along. The day Jake left, rain poured outside. Boxes filled the hallway. PC carefully packed. Monitors wrapped safely. Linda helped carry things to the car quietly. Before Jake got in, she stopped him. I still worry about you. Jake nodded. I know. Linda looked like she wanted to say 1,000 things. Instead, she simply said, I'm proud of you. Jake froze. Because for years, that was all he ever wanted to hear. He hugged her tightly. And for the first time in a very long time, she hugged him back without trying to change who he was. 6 months later, Jake sat inside a massive editing studio in Texas. 3 monitors glowed in front of him. Millions of subscribers across channels. Huge sponsorships. A full creative team. The life he once dreamed about while sitting alone in his tiny bedroom. His phone buzzed. Mom. Jake smiled and answered. You eating properly? Linda asked immediately. Jake laughed. Yes, Mom. You sleeping? Sometimes. You still overworking yourself? Definitely. Linda sighed dramatically. Some things never changed. Then she asked softly. You happy? Jake looked around the studio. At the life he built from the thing she once destroyed. And smiled. Yeah. For the first time in years. He truly was. And that's the crazy part. The thing his mom thought was destroying his future actually became the reason he escaped a life he never wanted. Sometimes parents think control is love. But destroying something your child is passionate about doesn't fix them. It only pushes them away. Jake didn't become successful because someone believed in him. He became successful because someone doubted him. And honestly, that pain became his motivation. So if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment what you would have done in Jake's situation. And remember, never underestimate someone's passion just because you don't understand it.